it is a chronic relapsing disease. Chronic, which is लंबे समय तक चलने वाली, and relapsing बार बार होने वाली.
It's like a knife. Whether we cut vegetables or whether we cut a throat with this.
The son might hate alcohol because he's seen scenes happening in the house, so he might not even touch alcohol. But there is a genetic predisposition.
But the first warning sign is that the use starts becoming on a regular basis, daily basis. And the other warning sign is that whenever you are idle, the first thing which comes in the mind is the substance of use or abuse. कि यार अब खाली बैठे अब क्या करें, चल एक सुताई मार.
These days, it is kind of cool to be, in that inner circle where people are smoking.
Number one, we have to know that it is not only the willpower which helps.
Men, they are definitely more ready to change as compared to women who cannot probably take in withdrawals at all. Men, they probably can take in withdrawals. We tell them to do some physical activity. Women, if they are not ready to do something, they will not be ready to do something.
When we tell them to shut it off, the addiction part, they are very authoritative and assertive. Hello and welcome to HT's weekly talk show, The Interview, and our special segment, Health with Hindustan Times. In our previous editions, we dealt with vaping, smoking, and alcohol, the dangers, the risks, and the why and how of these addictions. Experts and doctors had then explained the warning signs and, in one sense, sounded the death knell. This week, we speak to two experts who have done commendable work in the field of de-addiction and stress. They will take us through the challenges that people face and how they, as professionals, strive to bring them back on track. Watch them decode de-addiction and stress management in this edition of HT's weekly talk show, The Interview, in our special segment, Health with Hindustan Times. Before we begin, let me introduce our panel to our viewers. We have with us Dr. Rajiv Mehta, Vice Chair, Institute of Psychiatry, Sir Gangaram Hospital. An author and a designated professor, Dr. Mehta is an expert in stress management. Joining him is Dr. Satyavrat Vaidya, who heads a government-run addiction treatment center in Himachal Pradesh in collaboration with AIIMS Delhi. His work principle: if you cannot give up alcohol, smoking or vaping, come to me. Welcome to the show, Dr. Mehta and Dr. Vaidya, and thank you for being here with us. Thank you so much, ma'am. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Let me address the first question to both of you. How would you medically define addiction? And as someone who handles de-addiction, what are the challenges you face with patients? Dr. Mehta? Addiction is basically a brain disorder. We define it as when we take an unauthorized or authorized substance for more than recreational use. So there are two parameters. Number one, the quantity keeps on increasing regular. Number two, the decreasing in quantity or stopping the quantity causes the withdrawal impact. Number three, there is tolerance. The same quantity doesn't give the same amount of pleasure. Number four, there are multiple attempts to leave, but there is always a craving and there is inability to leave it without extra or outer support. Number five, it has caused a damage either to the social or the occupational life or the self-health, whether it may be physical health or whether it may be mental. So these are the some parameters on which we define addiction or dependence. If you ask about the challenges, then there are few challenges which are now upcome. Number one, availability. In our times when we were younger, the availability was not so common. But nowadays, apart from alcohol and tobacco, which is legalized by the government,
But other substances, the illegal substances or the dry drugs of abuse, have become very common in the black market. And every new day, a new synthetic drug is being there. Another challenge is the education about it over the internet. Few things which are not legal in India are legal abroad. And then the children come over and say, these are legal things, so we can use it. So they think that they have an authority to use it because they are legal outside India. Number four, with the westernization coming over, there is a what we say environment in the house where the females, the women are also using it. And when the children see their parents using it or the parties happening at home, they also get curious and are able to use it.
Dr. Vaidya, would you like to add to it, and particularly the challenges which you face when you handle patients?
I would like to say that for a common man to understand, it is a chronic relapsing disease. Chronic, which is लंबे समय तक चलने वाली, and relapsing, बार बार होने वाली. And it's a disease. Anybody can go through this, and anybody can be a victim to addiction. We have to keep these things in mind, that it will last for a long time, and repeated follow-ups, repeated interventions is something which is needed for this addiction.
What are the causes of addiction? And let us take them one by one: smoking, vaping, alcohol, and drugs.
People are mature enough to understand what is the limit, how much to consume, when to consume, and how to consume. We don't use the word addicts these days. It's better to use the word dependence. They become dependent on this particular substance. So it can be multifactorial, maybe due to stress, due to experimentation, peer pressure, genetic predisposition is there at times. If at all there is high family loading, then also a person can become dependent.
In fact, my next question was on whether it is hereditary. Father smokes, so son smokes. And is it peer pressure? And since my friend does it, I must do it too.
So I'll just add a particular line over here, that there is a genetic predisposition to dependence. Not necessarily that if the father smokes, even the son is going to smoke. Or if the father is an alcoholic, the son will also be an alcoholic. On the contrary, the son might hate alcohol because he's seen scenes happening in the house. So he might not even touch alcohol. But there is a genetic predisposition. And when we talk about peer pressure, yes, these days it is kind of cool to be, in that inner circle where people are smoking and experimenting with things when you're in adolescence. So yes, peer pressure is there, but that is where psychoeducation comes into limelight, where if we talk about it and if we know that, yes, there is a problem, if we get dependent on this drug, then probably people do not experiment.
Is it peer pressure? Is it hereditary? Or is it both? Dr. Mehta?
The social confirmation or the social validation. For that, many people start using it.
How do people become addicts? And Dr. Mehta, what are the warning signs?
Ma'am, basically, it starts with a very low use, general. And the first warning sign is the regular use, the daily use. If a person thinks that, okay, I will use it once in a while, it's like a knife. Whether we cut vegetables or whether we cut a fruit with this. So it is similarly with alcohol. People think that we are using it only once in a while, like we are enjoying that. But the first warning sign is that the use starts becoming on a regular basis, daily basis. And the other warning sign is that whenever you are idle, the first thing which comes in the mind is the substance of use or abuse. कि यार अब खाली बैठे अब क्या करें, चल एक सुताई मार. अब खाली बैठे क्या करें, हल्का सा ब्रेक ले लेते हैं. So the first thing which comes in your brain when you're idle, lazy, unoccupied, that is the drug of abuse, which gives you pleasure. So these are the few warning signs. There are few other warning signs, like there may be some blackishness under the finger, the smell may be bad, the eyes may look something reddish, they will not answer directly.
Dr. Vaidya?
It's multifactorial. During adolescence, you want to experiment with everything. You want to get into that inner circle where there is a lot of peer pressure. You want to prove a point and to enhance so many things. To gain confidence, people start taking drugs. So these are a few of the factors why people get into it. But why people get addicted to it is when they cannot say no to things, when they have poor coping skills, and your reward circuit in the brain that gets hijacked. you do not get pleasure out of any other thing other than that substance. That is the whole process of addiction. For example, if we take smoking, so nicotine causes that reward circuit in the brain to get hijacked. So a person will only feel pleasure. The good hormones in the body will be secreted only if he takes nicotine. So this is the reward circuit of the brain being hijacked, and that is how a person gets into addiction. When we talk about foul breath, that is a very important telltale sign in adolescent, but also very good breath. Whenever the child or a adolescent, he comes to his parents, he's always chewing gum or he's asking for elaichi, and he's always has some flavor in his mouth. That also can be an alarm bell. Foul smell is definitely a giveaway sign. But being in this field for a long time, we have realized that people, they smell wonderfully, because they always are taking some gum or something or the other, some mouth freshener is there. So that also can be a telltale sign.
Yes, academic decline and behavioral changes, either withdrawn or impulsivity, they are the other signs.
Which is the most common addiction between vaping, smoking, and alcohol? Which is more harmful and which is more addictive?
Ma'am, there are no choices in it. All are equally harmful. And smoking and alcohol are equally toxic and killing. But both are equally killing and equally dangerous. Number one, we have to know that it is not only the willpower which helps. For nicotine, there are two things. One is the replacement, the other is anti-craving medication, the third is rehabilitation. So we have replacement for nicotine. We have gums, we have lozenges, we have nicotine patches which we deliver 24 hours nicotine. These are the replacement of the substitutes which can be given as per the requirement and then can be slowly decreased weekly or in every 6 weeks and can be shoved. The other is we have two kinds of anti-craving for nicotine. The first one is bupropion, which is easily available. The second one is Verlicillin, which was initially produced by the Pfizer company, but it was bad because of the nitrosamine content in it. But still, it is being produced by some Indian companies which have very good anti-craving properties. And over that comes the counseling part and the rehabilitation part, because generally it is a stress-induced thing. So we give anti-stress medication, anti-impulsive medication to cover those things. And we tend to tell them to be away from the environment which gives you cues regarding alcohol or smoking. And for smoking also, we act on the stress part. We give antidepressant, anti-anxiety to control the withdrawal symptoms, to detoxify them. We give various drugs, and post that, then we have anti-alcohol drugs, antabuse, that is disulfiram, but that has to be given along with the signature of the patient because it causes reaction with the alcohol. And then we have anti-craving medications for alcohol like naltrexone, topiramate, baclofen, various kind of medications are there, and the people can be helped through those medication.
Dr. Vaidya, you said that there is no quitting and people go back to it. You supervise and run de-addiction centers. How tough is it?
That we have to understand the difference between a relapse and a lapse. When I say that it's a relapsing disease, we have to take it in stride that the person who's having, suppose, say, alcohol, and he's having alcohol 1 bottle a day or half a bottle a day, and he comes to the addiction treatment facility and we detox him. Follow-ups are very important, and we train them to come report to us immediately. And if that person has a trigger, suppose he attends a party where somebody is drinking, his friends are drinking, and he also ends up having a drink, but he is dependent to alcohol. So once he starts off, he cannot quit drinking. That is the problem. If we counsel him back, he can come back to us immediately. And if he comes back to us immediately and says that, yes, he's had a drink, that is called a lapse. So in 1 year, if he comes and lapses twice in a year, that is okay. But it relapses, that if he starts drinking again and for 3 months he's again drinking and he's still not reporting to a health facility, that is a relapse. So we have to take it in our stride that yes, the person is going to lapse again and again.
And sometimes the target is harm reduction. When the person is not ready to leave it, then we go on to the second best part, that is the harm reduction. Along with the medication, we tell them, okay, Now you take these medication and consume less amount in less frequency. So the duration, frequency, and the intensity has to be decreased. So that is the second best proposition.
Is de-addiction gender neutral, or treating men and women, does that require different skills?
So if I may take that, it definitely is gender neutral. Now, we don't really come across only males who are dependent. There are equal amount of females also who are dependent. The addiction treatment facility that I had in Kullu has 15 beds only for females. Yes, the demands are different. The management is slightly different to males. And when it comes to alcohol or even synthetic drugs like heroin, which is totally common over here, definitely the approach is different. But the medication and the cognitive behavior therapy that goes with it, and ultimately the occupational rehabilitation, which is very, very important, that definitely differs a bit when it comes to males and females. So, yes, both the genders are there in it now. There is no stopping, because when you're in college, if men can drink, so can women. Like there was an advertisement and which said that why should boys have all the fun? And what that is what the girls say these days, that why should boys have all the fun? So, that basically makes them also take the same kind of addictive substances, also psychoactive substances.
Who are easier to handle, men or women?
Practically, I would say men are easier to handle, and women are very difficult to handle.
Why do you say that?
Females are difficult to handle because the emotional quotient probably that is very different from men. And when it comes to, I would say, getting into a particular routine and managing things in de-addiction centers or in addiction treatment facilities, men, they are definitely more ready to change as compared to women, who cannot probably take in withdrawals at all. Men, they probably can take in withdrawals. We tell them to do some physical activity. Women, if they are not ready to do something, they will not be ready to do something.
Dr. Mehta, do you agree?
So when we tell them to shut it off, the addiction part, they are very authoritative and assertive than the men, whom we can handle. But in women, it is difficult to handle because their assertiveness and their authority.
What are women more addicted to?
Smoking, ma'am, and chewable tobacco. Generally, if you see in the Western UP and other things, it starts with the toothache. They have gulka datat, which contains nicotine, and the old age females, and they will start with smoking, BDs. So smoking and chewable tobacco is more common in the rural areas or less educated areas, and in more educated and more higher income group, it is the alcohol and other drugs also which are part.
Not smoking?
Along with the smoking.
Dr. Mehta, you are an expert on stress management and you've also authored a book on the subject. How would you medically define stress?
Ma'am, basically stress is the common layman word. And when the stress exceeds, it gives rise to depression and anxiety.
Does stress lead to addiction, and to what extent?
Ma'am, stress can definitely lead to addiction. What we say is like, जैसे बच्चे को भूख लगी है, आप बाहर का खाना खिलाओगे या घर का खाना खिलाओगे? तो जिनको जंक फूड की आदत है, they will eat only the vendor food. So similarly with stress, the people who are stressed can have various ways to beat stress. It may be a good lifestyle, it may be ventilation, it may be going to a doctor and taking antidepressant, but they find the addiction part easier to consume to beat the stress, and that becomes an excuse. From where they derive this? From the society, or they have some examples at the home that they are beating stress with the help of addiction, so they run to addiction to beat their stress.
Dr. Vaidya, is that right? Would you agree, or would you add to that, or would you contradict that?
I definitely agree to what Dr. Mehta said. That definitely makes sense. And over here, it's more important where your coping skills, they come in handy. People who have stress and cannot cope with stress, probably the easy way out is any kind of a substance abuse, which ultimately would lead to addiction.
Dr. Mehta and Dr. Vaidya, stress affects one physically. How does it adversely affect a human being?
So it can cause heart attack, it can cause blood pressure, higher blood pressure, it can cause diabetes, it can cause lack of immunity, the cancers, the seasonal change, asthma, other IBS, sexual disorders, infertility. So n number of diseases it can cause. And if we simply say Stress can convert into muscle spasm, neck pain, low back pain. The most common causes stress. IBS, going to the loo again and again, getting constipation or diarrhea again and again. So that is stress.
What about medication and the side effects and the myths that need to be dispelled vis-a-vis stress?
The myth which we need to break is that become dependent on these medicines. No, it is the need. There is a difference between need and dependence. If we compare need and dependence, the first thing is the similarity that both can be done daily, but there are so many dissimilarities. Anything which is done daily and keeps our body function normal, they are a need. Anything which are done daily and abnormalize our body function, alcohol, cigarettes, cannabis, opioids, they are dependence. The need will fix at one place, but the dependence, the quantity keeps on increasing. For dependence, there is craving. कब मिलेगी, कहाँ मिलेगी, छोड़ सब कुछ, पहले तो शराबी पीनी है. But for need, there is no craving. So the medications are a need, not a dependence. And now coming to the side effects. Vis-a-vis, what is more harmful, the illness or the medicine? If there is stress, depression or anxiety, so many illnesses are bound to come out. So there are health consequences, then there are relationship consequences. The relationships go haywire. Then there is productivity decline. The person is unable to concentrate academically or professionally. So there is financial decline. Now coming to the medicine, there are no major side effects as such. The side effects are only there on the internal. Most of the side effects don't happen. Even if they happen, they are very brief and the body gets adjusted to them. And even if they are unbearable, they are reversible and we can go to the other medication. But they are always less than the illness itself.
Dr. Vaidya, would you agree that antidepressants don't have side effects with what Dr. Mehta is saying? Because the common perception is that antidepressants have lots and lots of side effects and not easy to handle.
So there are many patients who ask us this question whenever we give them any medicines, be it antidepressant, and the first thing they ask is, "Doctor, साहब इसका side effect क्यों नहीं होगा?" Now come on, you're going to a roadside vendor and having pani puri over there, you're having golgappas over there, you've had alcohol, you've smoked a lot, you are not worried about those side effects, and are you worried about the side effects that an antidepressant or an antipsychotic is causing? See, whenever we prescribe medicines and we know that what kind of side effects can happen. Suppose we know that a particular medicine can cause probably a rise in lipid profile, a derangement in lipid profile, or we know that a particular medicine can basically affect your liver, so your liver function tests, they have to be done regularly. No side effect is permanent and it is reversible. We can adjust the doses. If we are giving the antipsychotic medicine and हम एक टेस्ट कराते हैं which is called serum prolactin. Suppose that goes up, we regulate it. If we are giving 2 mg of a particular medicine, we start giving 1 mg of that particular medicine. But the need for that medicine is thousands times more than that small side effect, which is reversible.
Dr. Mehta, you spoke about the idiot syndrome. Would you decode it for us?
It stands for Internet Derived Information Obstructing Treatment. So a lot of people come to us and talk about the Google knowledge. Number 3, an anxious or a depressed mind will attract more anxiety. So reading those side effects on the internet will increase or aggravate the existing anxiety. So it is better to ask all the questions from the doctor rather than the Google.
Dr. Vaidya, do you come across the idiot syndrome, and how much of a handicap is that to you when the addicts or patients who are dependent, like you said, come to you?
Yes, definitely. This syndrome is present everywhere. We come across this, and I suppose as mental health providers, we are well trained how to cope with this particular syndrome and how to manage such patients.
One last word for our viewers, Dr. Mehta and Dr. Vaidya. And I'm not using the word advice because the advice would be keep off. So I'm just saying one last word.
When it comes to dependence and you have an informed choice, let us not do any more rallies that stop drugs, stop alcohol, and banning alcohol, banning smoking is not the right way. Everybody is mature enough and you know what is right, what is wrong. So it's up to you to decide.
Dr. Mehta?
It is on you whether you tend to use it recreationally or whether you go dependent on it. So it is on you. You are mature in it. And if you are using it for what purpose, recreational or beating stress, that needs to be defined, and accordingly the decision has to be taken.
Dr. Vaidya and Dr. Mehta, thank you very much. Thank you for your time and thank you for being here with us and decoding de-addiction and stress.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Hope it helps all the viewers.